General Hospital spoilers show that Jason Morgan has already faced gunman mob wars betrayals and surgeries that would have crushed most people. But nothing in Port Charles readied him to be the next target of Sidwell and Cullum, a pair whose reasons were as icy as their tactics. For weeks there was this quiet tension hanging around, almost like a silent warning, with danger lurking close to Jason like a predator, just waiting for the perfect chance. As Steve Burton got ready to take a break from General Hospital, the story took a dark turn. Jason was about to be taken. She wasn't killed or lost in an explosion. Instead, she was taken on purpose. Carefully planned to take Anna Devane's place as the prisoner locked away in a European facility hardly anyone even knew about. Sidwell and Cullum's plan was harsh in how straightforward it was. Anna had gotten too complicated, too well known, and tied up with powerful people who were starting to ask questions. They needed someone to fill the role, someone just as valuable but more vulnerable right then. Jason was a perfect fit for that role. He was already getting close to the truth about Anna's confinement, already following the trail back to the place where she was being held. All he needed was to follow his instinct and walk right into their trap. Jason, caught between loyalty and guilt, just walked right into the trap. The thought of Jason ending up as the next captive was already pretty shocking, but what it meant went way beyond that. Jason wasn't just some random guy stumbling into trouble. He was the steady force holding together many stories. The emotional support for Sunny, Carly, Danny, Anna, and a good part of the town. His disappearance would spark chaos all over Port Charles. Sidwell was well aware of that. Cullum was aware of that. Actually, they were counting on it. A divided Port Charles became easier to control. Sunny, caught in his grief, was more vulnerable to being shaken up. When Anna was off balance, it was easier to keep her quiet for good. Jason's abduction was the perfect move. It took him away smoothly and cleared up a lot of issues all at once. As the story went on, viewers could really sense the change in the characters' minds taking shape right before their eyes. Jason started to feel like someone was keeping an eye on him. Odd clues, secret agents' coded messages, and unnamed threats started creeping into his investigation. His instincts, which were usually spot on, got mixed up because of the emotional mess he felt trying to protect Anna. He pushed himself too much, spent too much time working solo, and didn't realize how much Sidwell and Cullum had woven themselves into everything around him. And that mistake ended up costing him everything. One night, quiet and still, almost too calm to notice, Jason disappeared. There was no explosion, no body, and no dramatic collapse. Just silence. A disappearance planned with cold precision and cruelty. Poor Charles woke up the next morning feeling empty, and the shock hit hard like an explosion. Sunny lost his temper and flew into a rage. Carly felt something inside her break. Danny grew really scared at the thought of losing the only parent he still had. Anna, already caught, felt a shadow creeping closer. And the fans watching could clearly see what was happening. This was the plan, the story written to take Jason off GH. For a while. But this time, unlike before, there was a heavy feeling of dread underneath it all. People didn't think Jason was dead. He wasn't trying to hide. He wasn't quietly getting better. He was kept in some distant place all alone without any power or control. Just a pawn against the people he had promised to protect. Sidwell and Cullum had pulled it off. The emotion spread through the whole show. Every character linked to Jason started falling apart in their own way. Sunny's anger slowly turned into an obsession, and he promised himself he'd take down anyone who got in the way of finding the truth. Carly grew sharp and strategic, tough and determined to find out what really went down. Dante felt caught between his duty and his family, his badge trembling under the strain of a personal battle he never wanted. Even Spinelli, who's usually the kind soul in Port Charles, got totally caught up in trying to crack any bit of digital evidence that could help them find Jason. Jason's disappearance shook things up and changed every storyline in GH. And that's exactly why this twist hit so hard. For the first time in years, Jason wasn't at the center of the action by choice. He became the catalyst for all of it. His kidnapping sparked new alliances, broke apart old friendships, and threw the whole canvas into a mystery that stretched around the world. It wasn't just about changing the plot to cover Steve Burton's short break. It was a movement to change the whole GH story world. The shock got even worse when rumors started floating around the show that Jason wasn't simply taking Anna's place as a captive. He could be in for something much worse. Trying out confinement? Psychological manipulation that's pushed on someone against their will. Isolation meant to wear down even the toughest mind. The idea that Jason might come back different, or maybe not come back at all, sent a wave of fear through both the characters and the fans. But somehow, in the strange world of soap operas, this actually made a lot of sense. Jason's removal didn't shut down any opportunities. It opened doors to new paths, dark, dangerous, and impossible to resist. It gave GH the chance to regain momentum, make new enemies, explore different emotional sides, and bring back old relationships in ways they hadn't been able to before. But above all, it reminded everyone of something important. When Jason Morgan goes missing, Port Charles feels the impact deep and all around. It bursts forth. Sidwell and Cullum might think they've gotten the better of Jason. But they've overlooked one crucial detail. In Port Charles, no one stays missing forever. And when Jason comes back, because he definitely will, the reckoning will be something the show hasn't given us in a long time. Jason never thought he'd end up so helpless, caught somewhere between being awake and fading away. His body lay broken and still, while a cold light spread over him like it was trying to wipe away the man he used to be. He lay still, barely breathing, carrying wounds that just wouldn't heal, and a mind drifting too far from the life he once knew. Sidwell and Cullum hit without mercy, taking advantage of the moment he was caught up in the shadows around Anna and the unanswered questions that were dragging him further into trouble. That brief moment of weakness was all it took. The attack came fast, brutal, and without mercy. When Jason drifted off, it was like falling into a deep dark hole with no sign of coming back. When bits of awareness finally came back, he instantly knew his body wasn't his anymore. Straps held him tight, machines kept an eye on him, and the cold, sterile air hung heavy around him. Someone had kept him alive, not because they felt sorry for him, but because they meant to. And that reason was scarier than death itself. Jason caught voices before his eyes were fully open. At first the words were scattered, but then they became clearer, talking about him like he was just something, not a person. Sidwell saw him as a stand-in for Anna, someone to be held captive and controlled, a tool to be remade. Cullum had something even darker in mind, to strip away everything that made Jason who he was and reshape him into a tool that would obey only them. The idea gnawed at Jason's weakening mind, not because he was afraid of pain, but because he worried about losing who he was. If they pulled it off, there wouldn't be anything left of Jason, no loyalty to Sunny, no memories of Carly, no love for Danny, just blank obedience hiding behind the face everyone thought they knew. His body felt too weak to fight back. Even trying to move a finger brought sharp waves of pain crashing over him. His eyelids felt heavy, barely staying open for a moment before snapping shut again. He felt trapped in his own body, barely holding on to awareness. In those brief moments of clarity, he felt Cullum right there next to him, calmly laying out the next parts of their psychological conditioning. They wanted to tear apart his memories bit by bit, to erase everything that made him Jason. He felt like his sense of who he was closing in on him, squeezing tighter and tighter like a heavy chain. As he slipped between waking and sleeping, odd phrases and commands echoed from unseen speakers, creeping into the cracked corners of his mind. Every time he slipped back into the darkness, the voices came with him, filling the silence like a slow poison. He had a hard time telling what was real and what was just his mind playing tricks, mixing up memories with things he was told. Jason felt like parts of himself were slipping away, as if someone was pulling his memories apart and filling the gaps with darkness. He tried to resist, but his injured mind just couldn't stay steady. His body was giving out, his thoughts kept fading in and out, and his will seemed to be slipping away from the weight of it all. Sidwell and Cullum weren't after a dead body, they wanted to be in charge. Jason realized that if he stayed this vulnerable for too much longer, their methods could actually begin to work. Even worse, he was afraid of what that meant for Sunny, for Carly, and for Port Charles. If he came back as something empty, something controlled, he might turn into the biggest danger they'd ever seen. Just thinking about it made him want to push back, to grab onto any bit of strength he had left. But the darkness was pulling him under too quickly for him to keep up. Each breath felt like the last flicker of the man he once was. The world first blurred, then bent out of shape, and finally vanished completely. Jason realized something awful. Sidwell and Cullum weren't out to kill him, they wanted to erase him completely. As the shadows crept back around him, he suddenly understood that the fight wasn't just for his life anymore. It had turned into a struggle for his very soul. Sunny felt it deep down before anyone even spoke, the kind of gut feeling that had kept him alive through years of danger and betrayal. It always clenched his chest when someone he cared about was in trouble, but this time it was worse. This time it was Jason. The second Sunny saw Jason was gone, something inside him shifted into a sharp, steady determination. Brick caught that look right away and knew they were heading into trouble, the likes of which Port Charles hadn't faced before. Brick quickly started digging through digital networks, following leads, catching encrypted messages, and uncovering bits of a conspiracy that pointed straight to Sidwell and Cullum like blood on fresh snow. Across the ocean, Anna sat trapped, a tight knot of fear growing in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened, something tied to her. Something that dragged Jason into it without her meaning to. In her hazy, half-asleep state, she kept seeing Jason calling for her, held back, slipping away, and the fear squeezing her chest felt so real she couldn't just write it off as a dream. Every little noise through the walls, every change in the guards' habits, every quiet moment told her Sidwell and Cullum were getting ready for something new. Something worse than what they'd already done to her. As Sunny and Brick put the pieces together, the danger became clear. Jason wasn't just kidnapped. He was being twisted and reshaped into something completely different from who he once was. Just thinking about it set Sunny's anger on fire, burning away fear and reason until all that was left was a kind of wild determination that almost felt like madness. Brick kept a close eye on him, realizing this wasn't just about rescuing someone anymore. This had turned into a war, a personal battle. The last stand between Sunny and the guys who thought they could hurt the one person Sunny could never lose. Anna, struggling with her guilt, saw that Sidwell and Cullum were getting ready to swap her out for Jason. Planning to use him against everything he used to stand for, and knowing that just crushed her. She started dropping small hints, little signs meant for whoever might come to rescue her, knowing that Sunny and Brick would end up at her door sooner or later. Sunny, driven by anger, pain, and a deep love he wouldn't say out loud, got ready for a fight that wouldn't stop until Sidwell and Cullum were taken down. No negotiation, no compromise, no mercy. The fight ahead was turning into a last stand, one where no one was coming out unscathed. And Sunny faced that fact with a cold, steady calm. Jason would bring down governments, burn secrets to nothing, and pull monsters out of the shadows with nothing but his own hands. As Brick got closer to the final encrypted coordinates, Anna braced herself for whatever nightmare might be behind the next door. All around them, Port Charles was on the edge of its most intense showdown, yet a mix of loyalty, obsession, revenge, and the fight to survive. Somewhere in the shadows of the war about to break out, Jason lay helpless, not knowing that the last chapter was already being written in fire. Meanwhile, Sunny was ready to go anywhere to bring him back or to burn everything down if he had to.